So I'm not sure everything they said about us
Right.
because they were speaking in a foreign language. But y'all laughed occasionally, so I assumed that it was funny at some points and informative at others. But I, first of all, want to, hey, shall we introduce ourselves? I'm Harville.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
okay,
and you're Helen.
whatever.
Yeah, usually we identify each other because we wonder if you can tell the difference.
But what Harville wanted to do was, I thought this was really touching.
Yes, to thank Fred for taking on this project and becoming the sponsor of this event and our host, and to thank Samira, who was the conduit to Fred, but also has been our host and helper and guide and driver and everything we could imagine needing all the time that we've been here. So thank you, Samira, for being our personal guide, Fred he's gone, anyway, for making this event happen.
Well, and you mentioned you were going to mention the other therapists that
Well,
are here.
yes, and I think we ought to not only, go ahead.
Well, and then, because you had said, I want to mention
Yes.
Samira, Fred, and the other therapists,
Yes.
and then I wanted to add a sentence.
And so let's add, while we're doing that, Imago Holland. I think several Imago therapists from Holland. Why don't you all stand up so people can see what an Imago therapist looks like? And here we are, Imago Holland. Imago Holland is beginning, it's small.
And what I wanted to add with Harville's impulse to thank you, without Samira, the book wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have been published, but that they are joining an army of other therapists around the world, that there are 2,500 Imago therapists in 53 countries that have come for training. And so you're about to hear a process that helps relationships all over the world. And we're so thrilled to be able to share it with you, and so thrilled that now we're launching here in Holland and the Netherlands.
And so one of the things that Helen and I have done in the 30, 40 years that we've been doing this is that we've been in front of many groups and in many countries around the world. And one of the things that we have developed as a talent is to read the group. What kind of group are we in front of? And so we've been talking to you in order to give ourselves a minute or two just to size you up and see what kind of group you are. Would you like to know what we have? Would you like to know what we think, what we've come to? This is your diagnosis. We're doing a diagnosis of the whole group. And we want to start off by saying that we want to tell you that something about yourselves that we can read and read instantly that you've probably forgotten, but you've been looking for it all your life. And occasionally people find it and lose it again. And here's what it is. Are you ready?
Yes.
And you agree?
I definitely noticed.
Okay, so
Yes,
here it is.
yes.
You are wonderful. Wow. So that's it. You've never known its name till now, but you're wonderful. Now, what we'd like you to do is to amplify that by turning and looking at somebody next to you in the eye. And do that now. Turn your eyes to somebody next to you, whoever that might be.
If you came with a partner, do it with your partner.
And now say to that person next to you at the top of your voice, you are wonderful. And then point to yourself and say, I am wonderful. And then point to all of us and say, we are wonderful. And that is the truth. And say that. That is the truth. So, and we want to underline the fact that it is the truth. And we want to do that because one of the things that has happened to our view of humans in particularly Western civilization, but other cultures as well, is that human beings are basically not good, that we have to do something in order to deal with our badness, our early stories. But what we've discovered in studying children is that children come into a technicolor world, and they're fully alive, and joyful. And at some point in that relationship, an early relationship with their caretakers, the technicolor world is replaced with the black and white world. And the black and white world becomes the life that they live, but they want technicolor back. And the question is always asked, can I feel alive again? Can I get the technicolor back? People want to know, can you fall in love again? And we think that the fundamental human desire, the fundamental thing that we're all trying to do, is to get rid of the black and white world, which is full of anxiety, and move into the technicolor world of full aliveness. Does that make sense to you? Full aliveness feels better than anxiety? But anxiety is our primary sensation, and full aliveness is one that we have occasionally. And we want to say that we think that we can get it back. And imago, which is a theory of couples and a theory of relationships, one of the things we posit is that it is available again, that you can have it back, and that you can not only have it back, but you can keep it. That it is, and if you lose it again, you can get it back quickly. So what we want to do this evening is to talk about that and how to get it back and how to keep it if you lose it again. So that fundamentally we live in a world of joy and full aliveness rather than in a world of black and white with the technicolor missing. So full aliveness and joy, we think, is the nature of human nature, which we lost touch with early in childhood, and that we've been looking for it somewhere. Now we want to tell you how that was lost. And here's about a minute and a half videotape. And think about, and you look at this baby, who's a part of a research project of going through the 3 life stages. We think there are 3 basic stages in life for everybody, and has always been the case. One is feeling connected, feeling belonging, feeling that you're there. And then something happens to it, and it's gone. And then you want it back. And this baby, we think, is a model, this minute and a half, of that whole human trajectory in her experience with her caretaker. So look at the 3 stages: connecting, losing, connecting, restoring, connecting. Now you have to push the play button on that slide. Back to here, down at the bottom. Right there. Yes. And bring up the volume.
Are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby, who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
It's a little like,
So we don't need to hear him talk about that. I'll tell you what's going on. So there you see the 3 stages. Starts off good, goes bad, and the rest of our lives, we want to make it go good again. So I want to briefly tell you what happens when it goes bad. And this, we think, happens to every human being on the planet and has been happening to all human beings ever since there have been human beings. When the connecting with the caretaker early in the infant's life is ruptured by the caretaker, whoever that is, and this has happened for centuries, what happens to the baby is that flow of aliveness turns into anxiety. And the anxiety, as soon as it's triggered, we think what is triggered simultaneously is the desire to have back the original condition of full aliveness. But the baby can't get it back. This baby was fortunate that the rupture lasted only about 20 seconds. What happens to most of us is the rupture lasts a long time and occurs over and over again, so that the sense of being connected and experiencing joy and aliveness goes away and becomes a search rather than an experience. So that desire shows up. When the anxiety comes, what happens is that is so painful to not be connecting, because that's our nature, that we become absorbed in ourselves. We go inward because of the pain. And if you've ever experienced pain, mild pain, like stumping your toe on the way to the beach goes away, the water goes away, the toe is the only thing that you have. I remember recently I had the flu, and it was like just knocked me out, and felt for about 3 weeks that there was no world, I didn't care about anything, there was only me and this flu, and I'm trying to get rid of this, and that's the only thing that I cared about. And I was lying there saying, here I am living in self-absorption with my pain, but I'm not in touch with anything else. So when you stay in self-absorption long enough, which all of us do from infancy on, something amazing happens to our brains and to our data bank, to our hippocampus. We don't really experience other people as really themselves. We lose contact with otherness, with the otherness of others. And then when we lose contact, we make them up. And that's a mental condition called emotional symbiosis. Making them up says, you like chocolate ice cream, right? Well, that's good. I'm glad you like chocolate. I like chocolate ice cream too. And people who don't like chocolate ice cream, they just don't have good taste. So I've made up, about this. And so what emotional symbiosis is that my world is the world. And if you live in my world, you live in the world. But if you live in a world different from mine, you live in the wrong world. So what happens is that we then run into the problem of difference. And this idea of difference, this experience of difference, then causes really difficult problems. And one of the problems it causes is the loss of empathy. When we lose empathy, which we have a native built-in capacity to feel, when we lose empathy, what happens then is that we treat other people as objects. When I can't feel your feeling of yourself, can't experience your experiencing yourself, then I can't be empathic with you because I can't know your experience. Empathy means that I can experience you experiencing you, or at least can imagine you, what it's like to be you. But I lose that capacity. So I go into what we call objectification. And at the same time, behind all of this is a search for the original condition of full aliveness. So we think that we can get all that back, and that and we're going to tonight talk about how to cure and change all of this condition. So I think I'll just move on through this. One of the times when we get it back is this is so surprising. One of the times when it comes back by itself, is when you fall in love. Anybody fallen in love here? You know what falling in love means? Let's raise your hands, everybody. So nearly everybody knows about falling in love. You know what it felt like? It felt pretty good. Yeah. What am I doing here? Oh, it felt alive, felt vibrant, felt joyful. You felt like, this is normal, this is natural, this is the way life should be, this is the way life should feel. And we agree. That is the nature of human nature. That's our experience without the rupture. So romantic love, we think, is the re-experiencing of the full aliveness with which we began life and that baby experienced. And that also is the entry point into our connection with another human being with whom it's so hard to live and love. Have you ever found that too? The person you fell in love with kind of became difficult to be around. Anyway, you do that. If your partner's here, you may not want to raise your hand, because then they will look at you and say, you think I've been difficult to be around. So, and so our big job is, what do we have to do to love them? And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight in terms of how selection happens. In the romantic experience, when we get back full aliveness and joy, who we've fallen in love with is somebody who is similar to the caretakers with whom we lost full aliveness and joy. And when we see them through our unconscious perception across the crowded room, you never know this consciously, when we see them across the crowded room through our unconscious perception, we experience the anticipation that with this person we're going to have that again. But what we have to remember, and what we've discovered, is that that person you see across the crowded room needs full aliveness and joy just as much as you do. And when they see you, they think you are going to be the conduit for them. And the problem is that neither person can provide the needs because they have similar wounds. And so since you come into the relationship with similar wounds, similar needs, you wind up in an impasse about who's going to get those needs met, and that similarity produces that. So you have the similar wounds, like if you had an abandonment wound in childhood, you'll find and fall in love with somebody who has an abandonment wound. You'll want them to be present to you. They want you to be present to them. But neither one of you can be present to each other because you grew up with a different sort of psychology and can't be present. So then you develop opposite defenses. The opposite defenses is how I protect myself when I'm scared. So when you fall in love, the partner will have similar wounds, opposite defenses. One of them will protect themselves with intense energy, and when something goes wrong, they go. How many of you do this? You go into a really intense place, and the other one goes in a really down and hunker down place. And often, got the intense people? And no intense people here. Usually they raise their hands and really loud, and the hunker down people don't even raise their hands because they're too hunkered down. But you can go ahead and raise your hand because you are that. Opposite defenses and complementary ways of interaction. Then we call it your imago match. When you find your imago match, you then have discovered that you are connected in adulthood with an incompatible person. Now, incompatibility, however, is the grounds for a great relationship. And we have to accept incompatibility because all romantic relationships happen with and between incompatible people. So compatibility is what's marketed in the media as the thing to look for. Look for somebody who's compatible. But a compatible person is not interesting to your unconscious. Your unconscious wants somebody who's different, who has different traits from you, different needs from you, different levels of energy, different talents. And so we will unconsciously pair up with a person who has all these differences, and then when the differences show up, what do? You criticize them for being different. You want it, it shows up, you say no, that you really want them to be different. So when we fall in love, all these chemicals occur. We won't go through them. The emotions of, I feel like I've always known you. I feel one with everybody and everything. With you, I'm complete. I can't live without you. All of those are the features of being in love and of having back full aliveness and joy. So we lose it again because this incompatibility ultimately produces a conflict. And the conflict is what we call the power struggle. And we lose the connecting again in the power struggle. And then we start pulling on each other in order to get them to behave the way they were supposed to behave. Don't you know you're supposed to be doing this? No, I didn't know I was supposed to be doing this. Don't you know you're supposed to be doing that? We say to our partners that they're supposed to be doing something they didn't know what was doing. So the power struggle is the loss again of full aliveness and joy. But paradoxically, it's also a series of interactions in which you're trying to get it back. But the way you try to get it back makes it go away even more because you criticize your partner and you get into all kinds of struggles. So each partner in the power struggle is trying to get their needs met, not by asking for stuff, but by coercing. You need to show up on time. You need to hug me more. You need to smile at me more. And when we have something going on, you ought to be there, and blah, 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 blah. So I'm trying to get you to do my needs. Also, when we fall in love, and we usually give up a part of ourselves in the symbiotic process in order to not produce too much stress with our partner. So we'll say, yes, I like chocolate ice cream, even though I really don't like chocolate ice cream, but I'll do it because you like chocolate ice cream or whatever it is. I like to travel. You don't like to travel. I like to stay home. You like to go. So yes, I like to travel. I'm a wanderer. You'll do all that. And then at some point after you are connected, you'll try to take all that back and show up in the relationship as a real person, to disentangle. Each partner tries, and here's what's really interesting. I want to remain the same, but I want you to be different. So you change so that I can feel comfortable, but I'm not going to change for you. And then here's the final thing we discovered in studying couples. The whole power struggle is in addition about a paradox, which is the intimacy I want, I fear, so therefore I will interact with you in such a way that I can't feel intimacy with you. I'll criticize you so we won't feel close, so that I don't feel frightened by being close. Because that rupture in childhood with the caretaker leaves a memory that if you are flowing with someone, they could turn away and also turn back and glare. So that's a permanent memory in the brain, so that intimacy always raises the fear of the loss of intimacy. So the best way not to experience the pain of losing intimacy is to not have intimacy, but to complain about not having it, so that you stay engaged. You stay engaged with the complaints. So that's this is what happens. Anybody familiar with that? So one of the things that Helen and I discovered as we studied couples, we started studying couples in 1977, believe it or not. We're that young. You're supposed to laugh at that. That was a joke, but I have to point out my jokes. Helen tells me that I don't have a good sense of humor, and I have to point out that that was a joke, that we're that young in 1977. So in 1977, we were divorced. We got together, met at a party, and began to talk. And one of the things that we talked about was, how come we're divorced? And because Helen is a very amazing person, very upstanding person in the community, has graduate degrees, and I was a professor in a university with graduate degrees. Why would anybody want to divorce us? Or why would we want to divorce them? What is this thing about divorce? Here we are stuck with the stigma at that time in the 70s. There was a pretty big stigma around divorce that's not so much there anymore. So we started doing research about why do couples fight? Why does anybody fight? And what we found is this answer, which is that everybody fights because they object to difference. Just that simple. If you show up different from what I expect you to show up, that's different, and I'm going to ask you to show up the way I expected you to show up, not the way you want to show up. In other words, I don't want you to be the real person that you are. I want you to be the fantasy person that I believe I'm married to. And when you show up as the real person, then I'm going to object to that, and I'm going to object to it so that you will give up your personal reality and become the fantasy that I thought I lived with. Now, you may say that's ridiculous, but we can say to you that every couple we know of does that, and every human being does that, that when you're upset with somebody, it's because they're not reading your script. They're reading their script, and you want them to read your script. I want you to read my script, not your script. And if you read your script, that's difference, and I have to object to it so that you will surrender that so that we can be the same. So this is the way it is, and it's the way I saw it. Now, we mentioned earlier emotional symbiosis. Objection to difference is a function of emotional symbiosis. And I think we've just made that sort of clear. So what is it? Objection to difference basically is this. Other people share my subjective states. You feel like I feel. You think like I feel. We live in the same world. Don't we live in the same world? Our experiences are the same. I eat a tomato. It tastes like this to me. Doesn't it taste like that to you? This orange is sour. Oh, you think it's sweet? You have bad taste. Your tongue must something wrong with your tongue. We want the same things, don't we? Don't you want the same thing? What basically is going on is that there is no other who is separate from the fantasy that I have. Now, there's only me. Now, that produces problems in relating to another human being, because one of the things that exists in a relationship is two people, both of whom are real, but neither one of whom are experiencing the reality of the other, and both are experiencing the other as a fantasy. So the alternative definition of symbiosis is you and I are one, and I'm the one. Does that ring a bell? You're laughing about that. Does that ring a bell? Anybody ever said that to you? You know, you have to be like me or you're no good or something. You can't, blah, blah, blah. Yes. And you've never said it to anybody else, of course. I find people just say things like that to me. I never say things like that to other people. So we object to difference, and which was another important thing to find out, because difference threatens my world, that I will have to surrender the world I live in for a world that I've never known, which was a world in which other people who are real, have real needs different from my fantasy, also live. That threat triggers in me some anxiety. In fact, it triggers amazing anxiety. When I feel anxious, that sensation, then I activate my defenses. And then I become insular, I become separated, and I become alone. But I think that it's because of the other person. The thing that happens when we're in a defensive place is you can't connect with another human being. So then we can interact only with transactions, not with relational skills, and we can't experience the other. So, Helen's going to talk about the defenses that we develop when we are in this space.
Yes, basically, we've all carry a feeling from childhood. Everyone had parents who weren't perfect, and we all have some takeaway that was painful in childhood And we summarize that parents were either too intrusive, that is, they showed up in your life and telling you what to do all the time, how you were expected to dress, think, be, and you sort of wanted to be yourself sometimes, but they had their instructions on what you should be, or they weren't there at all. And we ask, as a result of this kind of pain from childhood, some of us ended up holding the energy in. As Harville said earlier, that we pull inside, and those are called minimizer, and others express their energy. And in the Imago community, we talk about the person who minimizes their feelings as turtles, and the expressor of the energy is a hailstorm. And I just want to say a little bit about the two of them. They're inevitably drawn to each other. So basically, what Getting the Love You Want, the book, as well as what Imago therapy does, is give you, as a couple, things to take home and practice that on your own you can transform your relationship. So that's what I'm about to do right now. I'm going to describe the fact that one of you is more like the turtle and one of you is more like the hailstorm. And when you learn about that at home, it will be helpful the next time you disagree about something. Now, the hailstorm is actually a great person. That is sort of bad marketing of who we are. But hailstorms are awesome because they're the ones, after all, that feel about others in the family. I mean, they're the caring one in the partnership, which is just magnificent, that they care about just not only the kids, but their partners, like the work situation and just the in-laws. They just care about everybody because they just want everyone to be happy, and they just give and just remember anniversaries and birthdays, and they're just magnificent, and they work their fingers to the bone for other people. And thank God one of you is committed in the relationship. Hailstorms buy relationship books, and they really try to give their partner advice on how to be a better person because they want the marriage to last. Aren't they amazing? And they are so proud of themselves that at least, one of them feels the pain of other people, and they respond, and they just work all the time. But, they're just, they just wish they'd get a little appreciation at times because people don't seem to understand, but they just work, and they're the ones that care. Thank goodness for them. But this is what it's like living with a hailstorm. The poor turtle is sort of traumatized by things. And then, oh my goodness, the turtle. Let me say a little bit about the turtle and see if any of you recognize yourselves. Because, thank goodness, one of you can find the car keys. I mean, if it weren't for the turtle, they are the ones that, they never start a fight. Live and let live, right? They don't go around micromanaging everybody. It's not that big a deal. They're going to accept the good in everybody, and thank God one of you can fix the broiler. We don't need a lot of emotion in our relationship. We just need to calm down, right? And then if we're calm, we can problem solve, right? Thank goodness, they really have a lot to say, and they would never hurt their partner. I forgot, there's something called snapping turtles, and if pushed to their limit, they suddenly snap. and you get a lot of emotion from the turtles, right? Right. Does anyone recognize the snapping turtle? And so I just want to see who, if you had to say in your relationship, if a problem comes up, who's a little like the hailstorm? This wonderful, yay, I see you out there because I relate to you. Yeah, aren't we wonderful? Right? We are awesome. We are awesome. And turtles? Any turtles? If, yeah, okay. And turtles are great too. Okay. So basically, the takeaway just from this one experience, the next time you have an issue at home, one of you will tend to express their emotions, the other will withdraw. You need to know how you can help each other stay in communication. By hailstorms need to find something to do while their turtle withdraws. Their partner is minimizing their feelings, and I took up needlepoint. And all my grandkids have stockings now. I needed to wait until Harville wanted to come out of his shell and talk to me about problem solving instead of me trying to push my agenda. And when I calmed down, it helped Harville a lot. Harville needed to come out of his shell and mirror me if I was upset about something, or just say, is there something I can do to help? And then I would come down. So once that dynamic, once you all begin to exacerbate in your own direction, there's some things that it talks about in the book that you can calm each other down and make it through the problem. So, Harville?
So the ultimate goal of a relationship in our research with couples, with all of these differences, all couples say that the primary thing they want in their relationship is safety. Safety. Doesn't sound very sexy, but that's what they want. And the second thing they want is to feel connected with each other, sort of like hanging out together, sort of like best friends or good buddies, to be able to play spontaneously, to have fun together, to share common goals, but to feel they are, in some sense, really flowing with each other. They want that. And then, interestingly, the last thing they want is that they want, with that person, to feel the fullness of aliveness. They want their bodies to flow with the sensation of joy, and they want that with that person. And they want these all the time. So we now have looked at that over the past 30 years, and we do not find that groups of couples change their desires. These three things can be, that we've reduced this to, are the three things couples want. So it became clear to us that since that's what couples want when they come to therapy, they don't walk in and sit down and say, I want to feel safe and I want to feel connected and full alive. They come in and say, would you fix my partner? And help them understand how painful it is for me to live with them. They go through all kinds of things. But behind what they ask us to do with the negatives that they state is they want a different world. And when you say, well, if your partner was the person you want and you were in the relationship of your dreams, what would it look like? And they all say, well, it'd be safe and we'd be having fun together and we'd feel alive and joyful. And they use their own words, but those are the words we come up with. So the thing that we then developed over the past 30 years is a process that we call imago dialogue. Now, we said earlier on the way to this point in the lecture that the big thing that happens to all of us when we're little with our caretakers is emotional symbiosis, meaning that we lose awareness of the otherness of other people. We know they're there, but they're a problem because they're not the people we imagine them to be. So what we have to do in order to live with another person in an intimate relationship, and ultimately to live with other people in the world and on the planet, is do a process that we call differentiation. I have to get clear that you are not me, and that you don't live in my mind, and I don't live in your mind, that we are separate individuals, but we are connecting. So this Imago Dialogue tool helps, every part of this process helps you discover the real person that you're relating to, that you're living with, that you're married to, that whatever your relationship to them is. Whether it's in your marriage, whether it's with parent and child, whether it's at a corporate level with employees or boss and employee, everywhere the same problem exists in all aspects of humanity, all ecosystems. So marriage is not a special place where this problem exists. It's just exacerbated there because all of the energy is concentrated with one other person. But if you go to a company, you go to an educational system, you go to a congregation, you find that the same issues are there, but they're less intense because of the density and diversity of people. So what we have tried to help people do in their relationships, in their intimate relationships, and also in other work relationships and spiritual relationships, is to learn how to talk. It seems so simplifying that couples want safety, connecting, and joy. And what we learned is that the way to have that really requires something very simple, but very difficult to do, and that is to learn basically how to talk differently. Talking is the most dangerous thing that most human beings do. And I say that, it should get a laugh, but it's not a joke. It is the truth that talking is the most dangerous thing. It is the conduit of conflict. And most of us don't know how to do anything else except polarize, because we're going to stay in ourselves and have our point of view, and we're going to push that point of view into the conversation. Listening is the most infrequent thing that people do. And here's a problem about listening, which is necessary to get to otherness and to get to connecting, is that listening is the most infrequent thing people do. But the other thing is our receptors, our hearing receptors, the brain, receive accurately only about 20% of what we hear. So we could say right now that while you're listening to us talk, you're engaging in an 80% distortion rate. So no wonder when you're talking to your partner, you wonder, what did you say? And then you go off and do something and they said, I didn't say that. And you say, yes, you did. I heard you say it. I can say it back to you. And so they say it back to you, but it's not what you said. But they're sure it's what you said because they heard you accurately, but actually because they're upset now, it's 100% distortion rate. If you're aroused, you can't receive anything. The brain shuts the receptors down. So listening is the most undeveloped skill that all of us on the planet have, and it's the one of the most important things that we need to learn. So we need a new way to talk that creates safety so we can connect and communicate beyond our differences. And we want to now demonstrate to you what that looks like. For all of human history, there's been one type of talking, which is monologue, and most of us are still using that, which is, I'm the one who knows the truth, right? I've got it. I've got this. It's this way. It's hot in this room. Somebody else says, well, actually, it's not hot. It's cold in this room. No, it's hot in the room. The thermometer is irrelevant because how I feel is how things are. So monologue is the form of talking that produces the conflict, because in monologue you reject what the other person says and deflect what they say, and therefore you disconnect with them. So there's only hearing going on. Now, about 1977, and when Helen and I met, we've always had a very, would you say, intense relationship. i.e. we've disagreed with each other vociferously. You should laugh at that because it's a kind of tragic thing. That Helen has always been clear about what she thinks, and I've always been clear that Helen is not clear about what she thinks, and that I'm clear about what she should think. And so this collided in the first few months of our relationship, which started in 1977. And in her living room, where we were having this knockdown, drag-out battle, Helen invented dialogue. And she said, now, I'm a therapist. I'm seeing couples, but I'm engaging in this behavior that looks like a 2-year-old. And Helen says, what you would often say to kids, stop! One of us talk, the other one listen. And she did that with such intensity that we actually stopped yelling at each other. And we discovered that something had happened, we would now say, in our prefrontal cortex. We received this message. It was so intense that it sort of slowed down the emotional reaction that we were having. And then we did that. We took turns talking and listening. We hadn't developed mirroring then, so it was very clumsy feedback. But I noticed that it regulated us so well that I then said, I'm going to take this to my practice and use it with couples, because I'd been doing a kind of exploration analysis. Let's find out your unconscious dreams and fantasies. So if you know each other better, you'll be better and you'll be able to have a better relationship, which wasn't working and doesn't work. So I tried this with couples, and it took about, at least 10 years to refine this process into what you're going to see tonight, which is a 3-step process that has sub-steps inside, that when you use this process, you will experience safety. When you use it, genuinely use it, you will experience safety. That means your defenses will relax. That means you'll feel vulnerable. That means you can connect. And that means the relationship will produce full aliveness and joy. But we're clear that this process, there may be others, we haven't found one, that this process can do that. Because in dialogue, one person is talking, the other person is listening, and instead of deflecting and rejecting, what's going on is receiving and accepting. So that's the process. This is the flow. And that begins the point of connecting. Listening and accepting begins the point of connecting. And this is a rather...
So I'm hoping we'll have a demo
Yeah.
before the break, so you
this
can
thing is
see
not-
dialogue and even experience it
Okay.
yourself.
Maybe it works better if I...
So there's a couple
Point
that'll
it
be
this way.
ready to
So
come up.
talking, a dialogue is a safe conversation in which we talk without criticizing and listen without judging. It's that simple. But when you do this, your world changes. And we'll tell you in a few minutes how your world will change. So it has 3 parts. We're going to tonight work with only mirroring, in which we'll use those sentence stems. Let me see if I've got it. Did I get it? Is there more? And did I get it all? Which is a summary. So we have a couple who have agreed in advance, brave souls that they are, to come up front, and Helen and I are going to walk you through so that you can see.
So basically, we're going to ask them to demo for you, giving each other an appreciation. And then we'll ask you all to turn
And you're coming with the mics, yes, good.
turn to your partner, or if you're single. How many singles are in the room? How many people have come to learn about this? We're going to want you to pair up with someone else who's a single. So anyone, I noticed, sir, that you didn't have anyone beside you
Yeah.
that was available. But like, are you a single? Anyway,
Right, if there's a third wheel.
we will ask, like, anyone who doesn't have a partner when it's time to practice this, because when strangers do it, it's very, very powerful. They
Yes.
love it. Maybe you can come up to the front of the room.
Just to learn the process. So why don't we stay with that just a minute? So raise your hand.
Well,
Is anybody else doesn't have anybody
Yeah.
sitting next to them? So there are 2 people.
Yeah.
and there's 3,
I think
4.
if they come up
Okay,
here
so it looks
after.
like an even number. When we go to the practice, you all pair up with one of these other hands that's raised so you can practice. Okay.
So I'm so happy to have met you right before, I knew you were going to demo, and you're Chris and Esther. And so I do the on-ramp, and then Harville will give you sentence stems of the dialogue to an exchange and appreciation. And the first thing we'd like to know is, at home, which of you tends to bring up issues and say, hey, I'd like to talk about something. I've got some problems. Or does one of you initiate conversations?
I think you do
I
that
think
more.
that's me. Yeah.
Okay, so Chris, you tend to bring up issues more. So we're going to reverse in this demo, and Esther asks you to be what we call the sender. You are going to initiate a conversation with Chris, and Chris, would you be willing to be the receiver
Yes.
and just mirror what Esther sends? Is that okay? So the first thing Esther will ask you to do is, we call it making an appointment, seeing if Chris is available for you to share an appreciation with him. And we do that to respect boundaries. You want to talk about something as a sender, and just because you're wanting to talk about it doesn't mean that Chris isn't orderly or right now totally absorbed with something else. And he's thinking about that. And if you try to talk to him, he's not going to give you his attention. And if you ask for an appointment and see if he's available, he might say no, but then he can say, I'm not available now, but I would be available at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Could we do it then? Then you have his undivided attention. So would you right now just say, Chris, are you available to hear an appreciation that I'd like to share?
I never call you Chris.
So
Sweetheart.
please don't call him Chris then. What do you call him?
Sweetheart.
Oh, sweetheart. Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Are you
Oh, you
Well, I just-
available?
you need to change the name on your tag.
That's why
He's
it
not
fell off.
listening to me.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
That's why it fell off.
Look at this. We have to, she is saying something. Esther.
Sweetheart, are you available for an appreciation I would like to share with you?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Now you know that he's going to be totally focused. And the next step in this is I'm basically going to demo for the whole room a whole new way to have a conversation with your partner when you go home tonight and tomorrow and the next day. When two people look at each other and decide to have a dialogue, sit where you're facing each other. So many conversations happen when one of you is on the iPhone and they're having a conversation and they aren't really engaged. We ask you to sit knee to knee, eye to eye, so that your bodies begin to relate as well as your words. So in this moment, now that he has said yes, he's available, take 3 deep breaths. And we ask you to do that so that you'll relax and become open. And when you breathe, how about breathing 3 or 4 times? And as a room, why don't all of us in the room just and keep breathing. And the purpose of these couple breaths is to make, as you make eye contact, your pupils will begin to open, which means you're open to each other's words. That we talk about shifting from the glare to the gaze. Because a lot of us are great at multitasking, and we have a glare when we talk to each other. So you're beginning to relax, and and let your bodies connect before your words. And then the last thing I'll mention, Chris, is we have what we call the pause button. And if ever Esther is saying something to you and you're not sure if you can mirror back accurately because there are too many words, just put up the pause button and say, let me see if I can mirror back what you've said so far.
Okay.
And this way you can regulate your capacity to mirror well. What you don't say is, you're talking too much. Like, we're going to get in the practice of not putting your partner down, but just asking for what you want.
Yeah.
Harville will now give Esther the sentence stems.
Can I ask you one thing? With
Yes.
mirroring back, do you mean that I stop her and ask?
No, I'll guide you.
And now
Okay.
you're
follow-
moving.
I'm too fast.
Now you're moving into the dialogue.
You're talking too much.
And Harville will,
You're
no.
talking too much.
No, that's a good mind that asks questions.
So, Esther, I'm going to give you what we call sentence stems, and that is, a sentence stem is a short sentence with a blank, and then you'll fill in the blank. The stem, and what you fill it in will be whatever's in your thoughts or minds. And when you are responding, I'm going to give you a sentence stem, and then you'll fill in the response. So when you're asking, what do you do about mirroring, I'll lead you to that point, and you'll know exactly what to do.
Okay.
And I want you to use the sentence stem I give you. And the reason is that we've been working on this particular process for about 30 years, at least 20 years, 20 years to get these, the on-ramp to a conversation so that it actually connects you instead of polarizes. So we'd like you to practice with these sentence stems. Later on, when you become masters of the process, then you can be creative. But no creativity tonight. Just do what I say.
Good.
All right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. We just want to establish the ground rules here. So, so you've made an appointment, you've made eye contact, you've breathed and gotten centered. And now you say, sweetheart, I like that, sweetheart. Yes, that's good. It's sort of odd for me to say it to you, though, but so I'm going to say Chris when I talk to you.
That's
Is that-
fine.
is that
That's
all right?
totally fine, yeah.
Okay. The appreciation, and the appreciation can be anything about his traits, or his dress, his values, or something he has done in particular, but anything that you appreciate, and just pick one.
It could be something minor, just,
Yeah.
it
So-
doesn't have to be a major thing.
So the appreciation I have for you is, and then you fill in the blank.
Sweetheart, the appreciation I have for you is that you always support me so well. I'm very grateful. Am I not saying too much?
So if I've got that, the appreciation you have of me is.
If I got that, the appreciation you have of me is that you're very happy with the way I support you in life and that you're very grateful.
Am I getting this?
Am I getting this?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there more about that?
Is there more about that?
About that appreciation, not some other topic.
No, you got that correctly.
So I'll give you another sentence stem. Well, the more about it that I want to say is when I experience that in you, I feel.
When I experience that in you, I feel very seen and taken care of.
So if I got that,
If I got that, when you experience that, you feel very seen and very well taken care of.
am I getting you?
Am I getting you?
Yes.
Is there more about that?
Is there more about that?
Anything comes up for you? And if not, I'll give you another sentence stem.
No, I feel very grateful.
And I'm also hearing.
I'm also hearing that you're very grateful.
Yes.
Am I getting this?
Am I getting this?
Yes.
So is there more about that?
Is there more about that?
So the more is when I feel that, I remember when I was little, and it was in childhood or not in childhood. It may have been there or not there, but when I feel that, I remember when I was little.
When I feel that, I remember that when I was little.
Stay with that.
Yeah. I just felt safe growing up with my parents taking great care of me.
So I'm getting this.
Am I? Can you say that again?
So if I got that,
So if I got that,
when you feel
when you
the feeling, and
when
say
you
the
feel
feeling
that
again,
feeling, and you think about your childhood, you felt very supported back then by your parents.
Did I get that?
Did I get that?
Yeah.
Is there more about that?
Is there more about that?
You give me a great sense of safety. Thank you for helping me realize that again.
So if I got that,
So if I got that, I give you a great sense of safety. Yeah, and you're very grateful for that.
Yeah.
am I getting this?
Am I getting this?
So, well, let me see if I'm getting all of it. So now you do a summary.
Mm-hmm.
Summary is, so if I got it all, your appreciation of me is, and when you have that appreciation, you see that in me, you feel, and when you feel that, you remember.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, if I can summarize what you appreciate about me, is that you feel very supported by me in life. And what you feel about that is that you feel very safe. And when you think about that back to your childhood, you experience the same. You were very supported by your parents. And you expressed a lot of gratitude.
Yes.
Did I
get
get
it all?
that? Did I get it all?
Yes.
So, well, thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
So now, since you're a couple, the next thing is that you get to stand up and give each other a full body hug for 1 minute. All right?
And while they're hugging, let me just mention that I think I heard Esther say something like, well, it was almost like she had forgotten that her sweetheart makes her feel this way. And because she said something like, she was sort of surprised at this coming out of her, and that she does feel his support, and that makes her feel safe. And there's a phrase in Imago called, what you focus on is what you get. And sometimes people are so focused on the problem that they fail to recognize the beauty of their sweetheart. And so I'm not sure, 100% sure if I'm right about this, but that's sort of what I began to think about. Harville and I give each other 3 appreciations every night before going to bed, which was the time I used to tell Harville what he needed to do differently to make my life better. That, right before bed, no one was by, and so I could help Harville know how to be a better person. And it's not a good time to do that.
So Helen and I usually like to get in on these hugs. So we'd like to join your hug now for the last 2 or 3 seconds. Is that okay? Yes. Have a group hug? Thank you very much. Beautiful work. Really wonderful.
Great demo.
Thank you.
Short minutes.
Yes. So the reason that we ask for a 1-minute hug is most couples, if they're sort of in an okay relationship, hug for 3 seconds. And if the relationship is pretty good, about 9 seconds. So they never generate oxytocin, which gives them a neurochemical bond. So you have to go to something close to about 30 seconds to get the oxytocin released, which is chemical bonding. And in a minute, it's really flowing. So we want to help connecting occur visually, with words also, and with the neurochemistry of your bodies. Now the connecting is pretty full. Thank you very much. You all are amazing. You're wonderful. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And is that okay? All right.
And we'd like you all to do this again before the break, if possible.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a partner.
No, no break.
Oh, okay, there's not a
All
break.
right,
So come up here if you don't have a partner, and we'll, again, people who have never met each other
Yeah, if
have
it-
a very powerful experience sharing an appreciation. So come
And
up
bring your
here.
little paper with you? Yes, so the people without a partner come and pair up, and the people with a partner, I know those chairs will make this difficult, but turn them to face each other as much as you can, so that you're eyeball to eyeball. And so as you come up without a partner, pick one, and we'll see if there's anybody left over, okay?
And if there can be 3 of you can do it together.
So, there's a partner? Okay. Okay, so it looks like there'll be one. First thing you'll do is decide who is going to go first. Because we just did a one-way send up here, you will do both ways. We want both of you to send and receive an appreciation. So decide now who's going to go first. Okay? So you've got 3, and there are 3 down, wait a minute, you can do pairs. There's 3 there and 3 here, so y'all be a couple, you go down and pick one of those, and y'all can be a couple, and we'll have it all
And there are extra chairs in there.
done well. Okay, decide who's going to go first. Then the second one is, if you're the one going first, you say, is now a good time to share with you an appreciation. And if it's a stranger, you can give them appreciation. Just look at them and you'll see something that you can appreciate. They may have beautiful hair, their eyes may be twinkling, they have glasses you like, but you can do that. So ask for an appointment, and then relax and make eye contact. And remember to move from the glare, soften your eyes into the gaze. The eyes are the window of the soul, and everybody actually can read everybody else's pupil size. You don't know you can, but you actually are reading your partner's pupil size when you look into their eyes. And if the pupil is big, your partner is available. If you read it as small, you know your partner is anxious and closed off and not available. So do that, relax, make eye contact, and 3 deep breaths. Go for it now. 3 deep breaths. Eye contact, 3 deep breaths. Now, some people want word-for-word mirroring. Some are happy with a paraphrase. So check that out with your partner. You want word-for-word, or is a paraphrase okay? So you get that done, and you're ready to go. Now you start. The appreciation I have for you is, and you'll take it now on your own through the rest of the exercise, which is on the sheet of paper that was on your table. All right? Go. And I'm going to call time. We found it's about 8 minutes per sharing, so we'll have about a 15 to 16 minute exercise. We'll call time in 8 minutes. Okay, we're going to come back to the group as a whole. And we want to ask you to share with all of us what you experienced doing that exercise with your partner or with the person who is a stranger or maybe a friend, but with whoever it was. Not a question, but a statement. Doing that exercise, I experienced, I felt, I thought, whatever, finish those sentence stems. We have mics, 2 mics, so the mics will
Anyone
get to
want
you
to
as fast
share?
to share. Yes,
Okay,
right up on the front row.
yes.
During that experience, I felt that's the sentence. I felt that we were sometimes inclined to go into discussion. Oh, is that how you feel about me? Oh, well, I think that, etc., etc. So not giving back only what was said, but just reacting on the contents of it.
So let me see if I've got that. I think you said that in sharing appreciation, both of you felt like you really wanted to discuss what was being said instead of just mirroring it and leaving it alone and just practicing the mirroring. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, it's really, I think we didn't say that what the sender has to do to mirror well is to shut off their thinking, like not think and only focus on if they're mirroring their partner's words back instead of thinking about, well, that's interesting. Well, what I think about what I heard my partner say, and no, I just have to, and it takes discipline. Thank you for clarifying that for us all.
Who else would like to share? There's a hand right there. And if anybody over here wants to go, you can get the mic while she's talking.
Thank you.
Hello.
What I've found during this exercise is that for me it takes a little time and some words to actually find out what it is that I'm feeling and what it is that I would like to share. And in a normal situation where I would say something and Paul would respond to that, it makes me think again. And then it kind of gets me off track. Mm-hmm. And in this situation, I stay on track of where I'm going or want to go, and also feel that there's enough space to actually figure it out for myself while he's listening, and that's very helpful.
Yeah. Right. I'll just mirror back a little bit of that. Is that it sometimes takes a while to figure out what it is you want to say. Yeah. And talking is a way you process trying to figure out exactly what you want to say. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. There's a word that voice without echo dies. And often we need a partner to help echo what we're trying to say so we can even figure out what it is we want to say. But when that echo is there in our relationship, both of you end up having a voice that you can both bring joy and beauty to the relationship. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Is there more? Yes, on the front row,
Okay.
there and here.
Yes. For me, it was very beautiful to go like this. And especially the part where it comes to this reflection. To be there very precisely. I felt very seen there by this way of communicating.
So I didn't quite hear what you said at the beginning, but I think what I heard you say was that it was a very beautiful experience for the two of you. And
For
ultimately,
me, at last, I don't know.
okay, for you,
For one of you, yes.
that you felt very seen
Yeah.
by her,
Yeah.
by the whole experience.
Yeah.
Thank you. Doesn't that feel good?
Yes.
To pause and, you
Yeah.
should see his face. I'm sorry, y'all, I can't see
Thank
his
you.
face. Thank you for sharing. And there's one on the front, and maybe this will be the last one.
I'm doing this.
Hold it a
dialogue.
little closer.
Oh, sorry.
So
Think
when
of
I
yourself
hear
as
you
a rock
say
star.
you're doing this,
With our couples therapy.
okay,
So, but I'm still struggling with really take time for my own emotions and be open about it. So then I'm still struggling with words. So I find it very hard. Yeah.
so it's hard, so you're working on this in therapy, but to get just the right words, it's hard
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah,
And
Thank
it's
you.
sometimes it feels a bit made.
pardon me?
It feels a bit made. Artificial. Yeah.
Artificial.
It can feel artificial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to. So do you have tips to get it more and more in real life?
I'm so glad you're working with a therapist
Yeah.
because that person will help you do that. And we want to be sensitive to the time tonight, but basically, a lot of us, as I said earlier, live our marriage or our relationship noticing what's wrong, because that's the instinct of the brain. The brain is trying to keep you alive, and the brain looks for anything that could be dangerous, and they look and they judge, and they see all the negative things. That's the lower brain, and it happens instinctively to have lower brain thoughts. Doing things like thinking about appreciations and things that are wonderful about your partner take you to the upper brain. And so all you have to do is practice going there. So thank you for sharing. I will mention that, Harville and I did have a hard time in our relationship for a long time. We actually have the marriage of our dreams these days, like for a decade or so. It's like the coolest relationship. Every night before going to bed, we give each other 3 appreciations. So you practice doing it. There's a phrase, what you focus on is what you get. And again, to practice focusing on what you do like about your partner can be wonderful.
So we have a little more input we want to do and another little process we want to get to. So Helen's going to talk about,
Right.
you want to keep the 2 chairs facing?
Yes, if you would
Okay.
put 2 out front.
All right.
So this is a real exciting new development in Imago that it really began to transform our relationship when we were thinking about divorce and we're having so much trouble. Basically, Dr. Freud did something
timer.
incredible when, after centuries, people had mapped the world, they had mapped the sky, they had mapped the oceans and the topography all around them, and no one had mapped the within. And Dr. Freud one day came up and said, everyone inside has an ego, a superego, and an unconscious, the id, which was a fascinating way to map what was going on inside, and then you can really extrapolate a lot about a human being from this interior map. And this catalyzed the field of psychoanalysis, psychotherapy, and Dr. Freud is a doctor and focused on the proper alignment here. And a relationship was how 2 people, like this person, say this is Esther and Chris, if they were having trouble in their relationship, Esther needed to fix inside of her, and then she could have a better relationship, right? Or Chris needed something, psychotropic medication, electric shock, dream analysis or something, or more meditation, and if he would fix himself, they could have a better relationship. And for for centuries, that was how people tried to have a better relationship. And basically, we believe that there is a new definition of a relationship, which is two people and the space between them. And what people have to do to have a good relationship is to create safety in the space between. You may look at me and go, Helen, look, this is empty. There's nothing here. It's empty space. But in fact, the space between two people is replete with energy fields. Think of the heavens. All this empty space in the sky is holding up the planets, holding up the moons, revolving around the planets revolving around the sun's in its own, the galaxy is twirling. All the space is holding up and making all the sky in this grand choreography. And space is really very important to understand, because that's how people connect, in this space between. So there's a physics of the space between. And I'm just going to click through these slides really quickly. But when two people commit to have safety in the space between, we think of it as sacred space. That you have to shift from judging your partner to being curious about your partner. And never say anything in your relationship that puts your partner down. Instead of telling your partner what they've done wrong, that you don't like, what you need to do is learn to ask for what you want in a kind, loving way. And that shifts the whole energy of the space between. Has anyone read Martin Buber, the Jewish mystic? I see a couple hands. Buber said that people tend to treat each other like an I-it. Like Harville pointed out at the altar, people go, you and I are one, but I'm the one. And your job is to make me feel loved in our relationship. And he wrote a book called The I-Thou. And basically, he said when two people will shift, and instead of treating each other as an I-it, you're supposed to meet my needs, if this person will treat their partner like an I-thou, that I'm here to help you with your childhood wounds, and I'm here to help you get through life, and I'm an I, but you're a thou, I want to serve you. Martin Buber says that the universal energies of love begin to flow through the two people and into the space between, and that God takes residence in the space between. And we believe that love is all-powerful in this way, that two people truly can become conduits of a universal love. Do you remember in that Ed Tronick video, the still face, that mother and the baby? The mother was right there with her baby. The mother was in the same room with the baby. They could touch each other, but she just stopped resonating with her baby, and the baby decompensated because the mother had a still face. So how often are you with your partner where your partner's talking and you're just in your own world and you don't take time to turn around and relate to how your partner is feeling? We really think that the look in your eye, the tone of your voice, And sharing appreciations is a way to begin to practice resonating with each other and creating a sacred space. When the space between is sacred, people then can connect in ways that they are longing, and then they can problem solve. By the way, you learn the dialogue process with appreciations, and once you learn it well, then you can use the dialogue around problem solving. And Harville is going to say more. Oh, so the space between, think of it like a garden. There's something between the two of you, and you can dump toxins in the garden if you want, and nothing's going to grow, right? But if you till the soil, carefully plant seeds, nurture the soil, water it, and really take care of it, your relationship can become fragrant, joyful, living with all sorts of surprises and wonderful things. If every day you're thinking about how to grow safety and pleasure and joy in your relationship. I'm going to, just for sake of time, I'm going to skip the Rumi.
Okay. So we'd like to play this song. It won't play all of it, but if you'll hit that button in the middle of that slide, I want you to listen, and then we're going to talk about the non-negotiable for creating safety in the space between.
This is a song that says, love is how we treat each other. Nothing more. We just love it. Harville and I get very theoretical and try to analyze everything, and it just comes to how are we treating each other?
Yes, that's it.
How many appreciations do you get every day?
To be humble, to be kind, it is a giving of peace in your mind. To a stranger, to a friend, to give in such a way that has no end. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. And to be bold, to be brave, it is the thinking that the heart can still be saved. And the darkness can come quick, the danger's in the anger and in the hanging on to it. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done.
So we just wanted you to hear that love is not an abstraction. It is a behavior, and it's how you treat your partner when the day is done.
And you might want to get this song and play it.
And play all of it.
At home. And
And
it's
if
so
we weren't-
neat how Harville will plug, he these days is putting in audio visual a lot
And
into our
if we weren't
PowerPoints.
running close to, we'd play it all for you. But get it, it's called, what was it called? Nothing More. And in fact, it's one of the few songs about so popular that there are no restrictions on it. So we can use it and play it here. The people who wrote it said, let people hear about this, that love is how you treat each other
Harville,
when the day is done.
Let me just say one, because this is going to apply with zero negativity, which Harville's going to talk about. If you make the relationship safe, your partner is going to turn around and want to respond to your needs. We are not saying that you give up what it is you're frustrated about and you have to sweep them under the carpet to have a good relationship. It's the contrary. Once the relationship is safe, your partner will turn around and want to solve those problems that you're frustrated about.
So since safety is non-negotiable, we need a process by which we can guarantee it. And the process to guarantee safety is zero negativity. Now, that's simple. Just cut out negativity. But it's very hard to do because our brains, for millions of years, have not operated naturally in that mode. Our brains naturally wonder, who's going to hurt me? And therefore, we are in a defensive mode looking for hurt. But if we stay in that mode, you can't connect. So we have to begin to move against the natural evolutionary defense of being sort of paranoid to being open, and by dropping negativity. I want to tell you a little bit about what is negativity. And what we mean by negativity is any interaction that you have with your partner in which they feel put down, like made less than they are. And that could be, what? You got to be kidding. No sane person would say anything like that. No, it's hot in here. Can't you feel the difference? Anything that makes your partner devalued, wrong, and so forth, is a negation of the partner. And so what we've learned over the past 15 or 20 years with this is that couples who make it to great relationships and recover full aliveness and joy go zero negative. And it takes them, however, some takes 30 days, some take 60 days, some take 90. Some took Helen and me 9 months to do it because we were so committed to the value of our point of view. So, well, I was. Helen was very generous. So any sort of negation. So this is going to smash your joy that you can't criticize your partner anymore, because you say, if I can't criticize my partner anymore, I can't get them to do anything. Well, what you don't know is when you criticize them, they stop doing stuff that you want them to do because they have to protect themselves. So you let negativity go. So you go into taking care of the space between by removing all negativity. And we say this is non-negotiable if you want the relationship of your dreams. If you want to stay with the relationship of your nightmares, keep on hurting your partner by putting them down. And then they will be they'll be anxious, they'll be defended, and your relationship simply will stay in the status quo. So what do you do with negativity? And this turns out to be really simple. And it took us a long time to figure this out, that one of the basic replacements of negativity is curiosity. So when your partner does something and you go, instead of saying, stop doing that, or why are you doing that, or you were doing something wrong, say to them something like, can you tell me what you were experiencing when you did that? When you came late to dinner, what was happening for you? Or when you sort of slammed the car door, what was going on with you? That when your partner does something that jars you, go to creativity rather than judgment. Then you'll discover this person you really live with instead of the fantasy that you thought they were, and you'll begin to relate to the real person. Curiosity, and then affirm them, and we'll say a little more about that. So we say that zero negativity is the end of the world as you now know it. It's the end of the world because the world you know is full of judgment. And you and I are the judgers, and we are the ones who say, you're wrong and I'm right. And if you don't agree with me, then we have to do something to hurt you so that you'll finally move to the right position, which is mine. But it opens you to a world you've never known, which is a world that we call love. That zero negativity basically is looking at everyone and everything through the eyes of love. You cannot criticize and love. The two, we have a neural channel that receives anxiety and difficulty and receives pleasure and joy and full aliveness. That's one highway. It doesn't take, two cars can't travel on that highway. It's a one-car highway. So when you judge, you are not loving. Remember the song says, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. So when you enter judgment, you're out of love. Love is not something that says, oh, I love you while I'm hurting you, right? Sometimes we say to children, I'm just spanking you, but you know I'm spanking you because I love you. And those are such contradictory statements that they produce schizophrenic reactions in kids. You have to be consistent with what you say and what you do. And this is so simple. Everybody knows this. And I'm kind of embarrassed to have to say it to a group of adults or to myself, but it's a fact that the brain can't process contradictions. And you know what it will do if it has a contradiction? It will always believe the negative one is true. Because that's the million-year programming of the brain, to assume it's more dangerous to be here than it is safe. So what we have to do is become safe for our partners. And the best way to do that is to decide zero negativity. So we developed and Helen said earlier, so it's not what you say. You can still talk about your difficulties. You just don't make your partner the problem. You talk about the difficulty. Instead of you say I, and then you talk about how you can co-create that. So it's not what you say. It's the how that you say it. And this was something we learned as a kind of nuance in therapy many years ago, was that couples who were not making progress were the couples who had a negative tone or a negative look or intensity, even though they were working on their problems and making decisions about what to do next that would be positive. They could not go into it because the sort of subtle put-downs were preventing them from cooperating. So we developed a zero negativity challenge, and it's called a pledge signing. And so we're going, even though we don't have a paper out there tonight, we don't have time to do that. What we would like to do is to ask how many of you tonight, based on what you've heard so far, are willing for the rest of the night, until you get home, to go into a zero negativity space with your partner or with anybody else that you see. How many of you are willing to do that? Wow! Look at it. Think of all of the negative pollution we've just removed from the planet. At least until you go to sleep. Then you can go back to your old ways if you want to. But here's what we really recommend, is that you decide that you will go zero negative for 30 days. Get a calendar and check yourself off. And if you are with a partner, you both will look at each other and you'll check yourself off. Helen and I began this in started in 2000 with our calendars. And on a bad day, we put a big X on the day, and the day we were zero negativity free, we'd put a check mark. 1999. And so if you, and what will happen is, at the end of 30 days, we need to tell you ahead of time, at the end of 30 days, your brain will go into chaos, and you will have the worst day of your life. What it means is you've actually practiced zero negativity for 30 days, and it pushed your brain out of the brain's homeostasis into chaos. Because the brain says, I've been surviving by being negative all this time, and you've pulled that negativity away, so I don't know what to do now. So the brain just goes in, I don't know what to do now. What do you do now? Stay with zero negativity.
So I want to say this happened, we discovered zero negativity at a low point in our relationship. We just couldn't connect well. And it was 1998, 1999. We accidentally stumbled on this idea of getting a calendar and every day seeing if we could succeed at not being negative for at least one day. And the definition of negativity is if your partner thinks it's negative. I thought I was helping Harville by trying to improve him.
And you did. Look how great I am. So,
anyway,
yeah, without you, I would be nothing.
But that was not, it didn't make him feel safe. I mean, he experienced that as negative. And so I don't try to ever improve him anymore. And, but we got this calendar, and it so transformed our relationship that on New Year's Eve, 1999, we had a celebration, and we invited...
remarriage
We
ceremony.
had a recommitment ceremony, and the fireworks went off. We were living in New York, over the Hudson, and we had this big, huge place we rented, and our friends flew in from all over the country. We danced, and the fireworks were going off. And it was because of this process, this
Yeah.
calendar.
We
that
claimed the
learned to do.
fireworks for New Year's celebration in New York as celebrating our remarriage. So, it was,
And
why not?
so again,
Take advantage of what's available.
we aren't saying you can't deal with your issues, because Imago teaches you how to ask for what you want in a way that your partner will respond. But you have to start with the concept of not doing put downs to your partner.
And here's our experience: you will fail. Because your brain's been programmed for millions of years to be paranoid. But if you fail, it means you tried, which is something very few people have ever done in the history of the world. And if you try and you fail, we have a reconnecting process. And fundamentally, it's redo the transaction. If your partner says, ouch, that hurt, I felt negative about that, then you can talk about redoing the transaction. And it may be that to repair, you just need a hug. You might need an apology. You might need flowers. You might say, well, take me out to dinner and I'll be okay. Or take me to Paris or something. But you figure out a way to repair the relationship. And in the workshop tomorrow, we will talk in detail about this particular slide.
Write this sentence down. The sign of a healthy relationship is quick repair. Everyone's going to hurt each other's feelings or do something wrong. The question is, how quickly can you repair so that there's once again safety in the relationship? And when there's safety, then you can connect again.
And just underline the word, safety is non-negotiable for a thriving relationship. So however you find yourself creating danger for your partner, you have to identify it and change it into affirmation through curiosity. Become curious about what's going on and affirm your partner. And we want to just say 1 or 2 sentences about affirmation, practicing zero negativity. About affirmations, I'm going to try to go, we've already been through that one, but it's the same thing. The affirmations process is moving from judgment to curiosity. And affirmation simply means that I appreciate you. You did that. You did an affirmation tonight. Another affirmation is, hey, you brought me a cup of coffee I feel cared about. And so I'm going to reflect that back to you. Or you may want to give your partner a surprise. That's a real affirmation. I thought about you while I was away from you, and I decided, I know you love red roses, I decided to bring you one, so that you have those surprises. And also to create fun. The ultimate sign of a great relationship is spontaneous play. That you move back into being with each other like children are, who are not afraid to play rough and tumble and whatever, because they know they're not going to hurt each other and they feel good. So we find the research now is couples who can play spontaneously are the healthiest couples on the planet. So you want to work toward the time you're safe enough to drop your defenses and get into the play. And so that you do the resonance that Helen was talking about. And that resonance begins to connect you. And then you will feel fully alive and joyful. And your relationship and life will be different. So we want to close up. Helen and I do 3 appreciations every night. Tonight's going to be a late night because we're going to be with you for a while with book signing. But no matter how late it is, how tired we are, we always do 3 appreciations. We want to go to bed.
We also,
the last thing I hear from Helen is I appreciate you. The last thing she hears from me
we also
is I
get
appreciate
joke
you.
books, and before going to bed, tell each other jokes. And because we're fun impaired, we figured out one day, and we do fun things, and it really helps transform the relationship.
So punch this song, and this will be our conclusion. And hold it just a second, before you punch it, who are we? We are, say it.
Wonderful.
Loud. Wonderful. Say it again. We are wonderful. And that is the truth.